Adventure on Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
Wake up, America! It's time for the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY.com, West Palm Beach's #1 internet radio station. Here's your host, the Pipeman.
This is Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio, and I'm very excited about our next guest because, you know, this band has always had this underground type of following, and that includes me. Because I remember way back when I was in this record store in the Valley in LA called Oz Records, and there was a store clerk there. His name was Brian Slagel, and he pointed out this album to me with a three-headed dog on it, and basically the rest is history, and now we're here today. Jeez, it's decades and decades later to celebrate a new album. So let's welcome to the show Carl from the Rods. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. And way back, you had to add that extra way. But that's a really cool story. I mean, Brian Slagel, obviously, legend in metal, and so how cool is that?
No doubt. You know, it's funny because me and my bros used to go to Oz Records all the time, and he worked there, and he just started Metal Blade, and so. I told him like a few years ago, I'm like, what a brilliant plan that was, even though it wasn't really his plan. But, you know, he was like, I was just a record store clerk. But he was able to promote all these bands working at the record store. So we would go and we would buy these albums. He'd like, hey, check this out. Hey, check this out. And it like that's how I became the metalhead I am today.
That's right. And they still do. They play music in the store. And it's a great way to promote. Like, who's this? Like, oh, these guys are great. Perfect.
Exactly. You know, and I miss those days too, at looking at an album cover and going, wow, I need to buy that album, and not having any clue what it would sound like. And, right. You know, I think kids today are missing that with that whole track mentality, you know, where you get this full album experience completely and you immerse yourself. There's even bands I didn't like when I first heard it, but you know, I paid money for the record, so I listened to it over and over again, and then they became my favorite band.
No, that's the same for me. Immerse yourself in it. I listen to the album, but people are busy. People don't have time to sit and listen to an album unless you're really diehard fan. But it is a shame about the physical. But you do see people, like I know for this Rods album, Rattle the Cage, we're sold out of almost all the vinyl now.
Wow.
So they're reordering it, so it's actually fantastic. But people are buying vinyl.
I love that vinyl's making a comeback, and I even laugh because there's bands I've interviewed over the past few years that are putting out cassettes too, and I love that too. I still have a whole stack of my albums, including that Rods album from way back, and I still have like boxes and boxes of cassettes. The only thing I didn't keep were my 8-tracks.
I just heard some band was trying to do a release on an 8-track. I can't imagine where do you play that, but that's pretty cool.
I don't even know. That would be cool, but like, can you even find an 8-track player?
Yeah, maybe it's just a collector's item, but it's a cool idea.
No doubt. I remember I had Blizzard of Oz, and Mr. Crowley used to cut in the middle to change from track 2 to track 3. And it would like fade out and then fade back in, and I'd have to put a matchbook cover under the tape so it wouldn't play slowly, and you know, the struggles.
That was 8-tracks were a struggle for sure.
No doubt. So tell us about the new album, and you know, I'm always fascinated with artists like you that have been around doing this for so long. How you keep coming up with new material to write. Like you would think at some point you run out of material to write.
Yeah, that, I guess that's a case of the muse. In this for this album, we have David just was on a tear. Like, he was really prolific. He would call me every couple of days. I have another one. And for this album, with the exception of Heaven and Hell and High Water, which Freddie brought in the riff and the song title, I sent David the lyrics for Rattle the Cage, the idea for that, and for Shockwave, which was the working title until Rattle the Cage became what we thought was a great song and perfect for the album. For this album, David's just been on a roll, and we're already through. I just sent them some ideas. I picked up my guitar finally. I've been very busy the last couple of years. I picked up my guitar and bass, and I record these little home demos. So I've already sent them some ideas. We already have 4 or 5 songs recorded in the can that I need drum tracks to, and then sweetening. And David's written, I think, 1 or 2 more songs, and Freddie has ideas. So it's we're not short of ideas. We'll have our next album done in the next few months.
Wow, that's amazing. It amazes me because artists have been doing this as long as you. It seems like they're playing out more music now than in a row than back in the day. And I guess there is a lot of material nowadays to speak about on albums. Like, it almost seems like we have a repeat of stuff in the 80s to talk about.
Well, no, there's definitely, things cyclical, and I think things come back around. And you see things coming back, like power pop, power rock, hard rock. Like, it just says, along with all the other genres and, and subgenres of metal, the extreme metal. So it's cool. To me, I have some friends who are older, like, oh, the music is blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I don't know what you're listening to, because there's so much great music out there. Every day there's new great music, and so.
Well, it's funny because there are people that I knew, years ago that I went to shows with, and they kind of say, yeah, I used to be a metalhead. And I'm like, yeah, you weren't really a metalhead if you say used to. A metalhead's a metalhead no matter what. And go ahead.
No, it's in Europe, we found once we started going to Europe that in Europe, our fans, like, we have fans who are doctors, lawyers, like, they're well into their career, they're older, they're hardcore metal fans, successful business people. They're not. It's like here in America, country fans are country fans for life. There's no fickle, oh yeah, well, I used to be a country fan. I was a country fan, still a country fan. For some reason in America, there's been this pop sensibility where you were fed this top 40 thing, and once that was passé, then suddenly that group or that style of music was no longer cool. But that's not the way it is. For Europeans who love music, they know what they like, and they find the good bands that they like, and they stay with them. And as long as you're putting out music that's true and to the band, it isn't just basic crap, those fans stay with you. It's not about, I used to be metal, like you said. And but in America, country fans are like the metal fans are in Europe. They're hardcore, there for life. They like it, they're there.
Yeah, true story. And, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what I found going over to Europe is that, man, I thought, like, there's some bands that I loved back in the 80s that I thought were not around anymore. And turns out they've just been in Europe all this time because they love the old school metal, the new school metal. They love it all. I do coverage of festivals, and going to a European festival like Hellfest or Wacken or any of those is a whole different experience than I experienced in the U.S.
Yeah, totally different. And like Download, first I went to Download, it's like, oh my God, it's a city. They built a city for the festival. It's incredible.
Right. And same with Hellfest. That whole city of Lausanne is all like a Hellfest city. And Download, it's funny you mentioned Download, because last year at Download, Metallica headlined, and there were complaints 15 miles away from people that the music was too loud, and they could hear Metallica loud and clear 15 miles away. I'm like, that's pretty badass.
Badass, yeah. They're lucky they didn't get charged. Those tickets were pretty high.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And it's just interesting to see, like you're saying, going to these different festivals, and even here right now, I'm in Costa Rica right now.
Oh,
And, I met somebody the first day I got here that is a musician, and he puts on different events and small festivals here. And I've talked about, man, I want to do a festival in Costa Rica because you don't really have a metal festival here. Well, that's what I thought till talking to this guy, and we're talking about maybe putting on a festival here. He said there's a huge underground metal scene in Costa Rica, and I never even knew that. So it just goes to show metal has never died. It's worldwide, and in some places bigger than it ever was.
yeah, I agree.
So, what is it that, throughout the years keeps you going and keeps you doing this besides the love of the music? What other things fuel your passion for being a musician?
Well, I've wanted to play drums since I was 4.5, and I didn't get drums until I was 13. I got a practice pad when I was maybe 11 or something, but I didn't get drums till I was 13. Single mom, poor, and just didn't get them. So when I did, I hit the ground running, and I've always wanted to play. I still have that same passion today about playing my drums. I recorded a drum track, a work for hire for someone, and did that drum track yesterday, and I couldn't wait to play it. I was excited to actually go in and knock out the drum part and be creative. And so those things are it's something that I just want to play my drums. I'm as excited about my drums today as I was when I was a kid. And when I look at my drums, I look at all the shiny cymbals and the shiny cymbal stands and the drums, and it's like, it's cool. It's like I go into like a store like Harbor Freight or any store like that, like Ace Hardware, and I look at the wall and I'll see all the tools. I don't want to use them. I don't know how to use them. All that boy stuff doesn't work for me. I can change lipos, but and I can do basic stuff. But when I look at all this stuff, I'm like, wow, that is so cool. That's how I feel when I look at drums. I'm always looking or gear. Like I have guitars over here in the corner. Just something about it that I love. It attracts me, and but it's fun to play, and I still, every day I want to get up and I want to play my drums, and when I don't, I kind of feel guilty about it. So I think that's just in me, it's just the way it is. And it's someone asked me about my daughter, who was a music teacher in a public school, and they said, "Oh, you must have, really wanted your, daughter to be a musician." I had a recording studio when she was born, so she was always there with me. I had a nanny who was there, and my daughter was with me all the time, and I said, no, oh, you must, do you push her to play this? And I'm like, she's got a whole studio full of equipment. If she's interested in something, it's right there every day for her. But I never said a word about it. And because I didn't want her to be like me. If I hear sneakers in the dryer, I'm listening to the rhythm. If there's a sound machine, I'm listening to the edit point. When I turn the radio on, I'm listening. How do they do that? Listen to the way they stack the vocals. Listen to the rhythm section. How do they do that? What's that bass sound? Is that a fretless? Your brain is going all the time. And people used to say to me after we come out of a long session, and I turn the radio on, like, well, you want to listen to more music? I'm like, yeah. So that's just it. And I didn't want to. That's a curse to me. As much as I love it, it's something that I wanted my daughter to not have that, and she doesn't. She's a brilliant musician. She's the quote real musician in the family, but she doesn't have that compulsive. I must play and I must do all these things. So that's a good thing, because it's not in her head all the time, torturing her like it does me. But at the same time, I say torture. I love it.
What a great viewpoint, though, because it's funny as you're saying that. You and I talked before getting on that. I played drums for 9 years from a little kid, and then I played in a school band, school orchestra, and I ended up realizing that I kind of sucked. But probably for that reason, that I didn't have that same obsession over it. Like I wanted to do it, but I loved it, but I didn't love it. And it's funny you brought me back when you talked about the practice pad, because I think part of what turned me off too is similar story, but you went in different directions. I had that practice pad for like years, and it bored the crap out of me. And then
yes,
When my dad finally got me a drum set, because I kept begging for one, it was like this little crappy one. So I was like kind of disenchanted. But you have to figure level.
Yeah, absolutely. It opens the world to you. My first drum kit was a crappy, couldn't afford anything, real legit drum set. So I found a Japanese, and this guy was kind of a shyster, and my mother was working at the post office as a clerk in the window. And so we show up, and I just begged, and she finally signed this installment agreement for $60 a month, which was a lot of money back then. And for $60 a month for this crappy Japanese set name was Gracie drums. I still have the receipt for it, believe it or not. But it was all we could afford. But parents didn't know. Sure, your dad didn't know. They didn't know what to buy. They just like, oh, it's a drum set. Like all drum sets are equal to somebody who doesn't know. So, and I didn't know either. So this Gracie drum set, all I knew was it had, two tom-toms, a mounted tom, a floor tom, a snare, a hi-hat, a ride cymbal, a crash cymbal. Like I was like, wow, this is a big kit. So that's all I cared about. And it got me through until it started falling apart. But by then I was able to buy little pieces to replace it and got me started.
And here you are, new album, absolutely awesome. How do people get the check out the new music, get the new album, connect with you guys on socials, on the web, all that good stuff?
TheRods.com is a good place. And of course, on Facebook, The Rods, or The Rods official fan page, I think is where you go. And Carl Kennedy, David Rock Feinstein, Freddie Villano. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram. We're all, we're there, The Rods. Just search for us. And we always love to hear from people. So, definitely come and say hi. Let us know what you think about the new album. We're very proud of it. We think it's one of our best since the first album. And our new bass player, Freddie, has added so much to the band. Sonically, musically, it's been a huge move forward for us. Basically the big vitamin B shot for the band.
Nice. I love it. Is there anything else you want to share with the listeners that we haven't covered already that they need to know about you and the Rods?
Well, we're going to Australia we're doing a bill with Ross the Boss and Anvil. So This is like old home week because, Ross and I were bandmates in the first Man-O-War, in the early Man-O-War genesis of that band. And so we've been friends for all those years or all these years. And then, of course, the buddies in Anvil, we're good friends with those guys. So I love them and I can't wait to hang with them. So we're really excited. It's going to be old home week. So we're doing 4 dates in Australia starting March. And I need to get the dates together, but I'll be posting stuff on that. But it's going to be fun in Australia. And then we have other regional dates that'll be coming up and hopefully some European as well.
Love it. Love you guys. I'm glad you're still making great music. And I think everybody needs to check you out, get the new album. And, anywhere you play, hey, live music's the best. And you guys are still killing it. So thanks a lot for giving. Yeah. Oh, my pleasure. And thank you for being on the Adventures of Pipeman.
No problem. Thank you. And by the way, I have a new book coming out.
Let's hear about that.
That's an autobiography. And, as you can see in the wall behind me, I have 45 plus albums I've produced or recorded. And so, it's a pretty interesting book. I hope. We'll see. You never know until you put it out. But there's a lot of information in it. So I'll be posting on that soon. So I'll let you know about that.
All right, cool. So if people want to keep updated on that, they just check you out on the socials and they'll find out more about the book as everything rolls along. Well, cool. I love it. And hey, look forward to seeing a lot more of you.
Great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.